Professor John Matthews stood at the entrance of Stanford University's History Department, watching three unusual figures approach. The morning sun reflected off Carax's crystalline body, creating rainbow patterns on the sidewalk. Behind him floated Tivell, whose translucent blue skin rippled like water with each movement. Zora followed last, her multiple tentacle-like appendages swaying gently as she walked. "Welcome to Earth," Professor Matthews said, extending his hand before remembering that alien customs might be different. Carax tilted his geometric head, studying the gesture with glowing amber eyes. "We have learned this is a human greeting," Carax said, his voice sounding like wind chimes. He carefully extended a crystalline arm and shook the professor's hand. "I am Carax of Zeta Prime. These are my fellow students, Tivell and Zora." Lisa, Carter, the teaching assistant, stepped forward with a warm smile. "I'm Lisa. I'll help you get settled and answer any questions about our campus." The aliens followed Lisa and Professor Matthews into the building. Students stopped and stared as the group passed by. Some took pictures with their phones, which made Tivell's watery form shimmer nervously. "Please forgive their curiosity," Lisa said softly. "You're the first exchange students from the Galactic Academy. Everyone's excited to meet you." Inside the classroom, the aliens examined their specially designed seats. Carax's chair was reinforced to support his crystal weight. Tivell had a water-filled pod, and Zora's seat accommodated her multiple limbs. "We are grateful for these accommodations," Zora said, her melodic voice filling the room. "The Galactic Academy told us humans are considerate hosts." Professor Matthews opened his laptop and pulled up the course syllabus. "I understand you're here to study Earth's historical development. The Academy suggested we focus on scientific progress." Carax's amber eyes pulsed brighter. "Yes, we wish to learn how Earth developed space travel technology so quickly. Most species take thousands of years longer." The professor and Lisa exchanged glances. Lisa cleared her throat. "Well, our technological advancement is complicated. It's closely tied to our military history." "Military?" Tivell asked, his watery form rippling with confusion. "What is this word?" Professor Matthews paused, choosing his words carefully. "Military refers to organized forces for defense and conflict." "Conflict?" Zora's tentacles curled inward. "You mean disagreements? Debates?" "Sometimes more than that," Lisa said gently. "Sometimes physical conflict. Wars." The three aliens were silent. Their translator seemed to struggle with the concept. "Perhaps we should start from the beginning," Professor Matthews suggested. "Tomorrow, we'll begin with ancient human civilizations and how they developed." That evening, Lisa helped the aliens settle into their specially modified dormitory. She found them huddled together, communicating in their native languages. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Carax turned to her, his crystalline face somehow expressing concern. "We have been researching these words, military, war, conflict. The images we found are disturbing. Our species abandoned violence millennia ago," Tivell added, his voice gurgling like a mountain stream. "We evolved through cooperation." Zora's tentacles waved slowly. "The Galactic Academy did not inform us that humans still practice organized violence. Is this why your technology advanced so rapidly?" Lisa sat down across from them. "It's complicated. Yes, many of our technological breakthroughs came during times of conflict, but we've also made amazing progress through peaceful cooperation." "We do not understand," Carax said. "How can a species create both terrible weapons and beautiful art? How can the same beings who build bombs also compose music?" "That's what makes humans unique," Lisa replied. "We're capable of both great destruction and great creation. Our history isn't simple or clean, but it's made us who we are." The aliens remained quiet, processing this information. Finally, Zora spoke. "We came to learn about human science. It seems we will learn much more." "Are you sure you want to continue?" Lisa asked. "Our history can be difficult to understand." Carax's crystal body chimed softly as he nodded. "We are scholars. We must understand." even if it challenges our beliefs. As Lisa left them for the night, she wondered how these peaceful beings would react to humanity's violent past. Tomorrow's first real history lesson would be just the beginning of their shocking education about Earth's combat history. The classroom filled with morning light as Professor Matthews prepared his presentation. The alien students sat attentively, their unusual forms creating strange shadows on the walls. Carax's crystalline body refracted the sunlight into rainbow patterns while Tivel's watery form seemed to absorb the light completely. Today we begin with ancient warfare, Professor Matthews announced, clicking to his first slide. Let's start with the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC. The screen showed an artist's rendering of Spartan warriors in bronze armor. The aliens leaned forward, studying the image with confusion. These humans are wearing metal coverings, Zora observed, her tentacles pointing at the screen. Are they participating in a ceremony? No, the professor replied. They're wearing armor for protection. They're preparing for battle. Tivel's liquid form rippled with distress. Battle? You mean they intend to harm each other? Yes. In this particular battle, 300 Spartan warriors held off thousands of Persian soldiers at a narrow mountain pass. Carax's amber eyes flickered rapidly. 300 against thousands? This seems mathematically impossible. Why would they engage in such odds? Professor Matthews paused, considering how to explain. They were defending their homeland. They knew they would likely die, but they fought to give their people time to prepare defenses. The aliens sat in stunned silence. Finally, Zora spoke, her melodic voice trembling. They chose death? Deliberately? They chose to sacrifice themselves for others, Lisa explained from the back of the room. It's considered one of history's greatest acts of bravery. But surely there were other solutions, Tivel protested. Negotiation, compromise. Sometimes in human history, talking failed, Professor Matthews said. Sometimes people had to fight to survive. He clicked to the next slide, showing battle, formations and strategies. The Spartans were master tacticians. They used the narrow pass to neutralize the enemy's numerical advantage. Carax studied the diagram intently. This is clever. They used geographical features as force multipliers. His crystalline structure hummed with interest. We have similar concepts in resource management, but never for combat. The professor continued through several more examples of ancient battles. With each new slide, the aliens grew more uncomfortable, yet increasingly fascinated. I don't understand, Zora said during a discussion of Roman military tactics. Your species developed complex mathematics, engineering, and social structures, all while constantly fighting? Often because of the fighting, Professor Matthews corrected. War drove innovation. Better weapons led to better tools. Military organization led to improved government systems. Tivel's form turned a darker shade of blue. On my world, we solved conflicts through collective meditation. Violence was abandoned before we achieved spaceflight. And that's admirable, Lisa said. But humans faced different challenges. We had predators, harsh climates, and limited resources. Competition was part of our evolution. Carax raised a crystalline hand. Professor, may I ask something? These ancient warriors, did they enjoy causing harm? Professor Matthews shook his head. Most didn't. They fought out of duty, necessity, or belief in a cause. Many ancient texts speak of the horror of war, even as they honored those who fought. This is most peculiar, Carax mused. Your species seems to simultaneously celebrate and mourn violence. The professor smiled sadly. That's an excellent observation. Humans have always had a complex relationship with conflict. We honor the courage of warriors while hoping for peace. As the lesson continued, the aliens began taking detailed notes. Their translation devices worked overtime, trying to process concepts that didn't exist in their languages. Near the end of class, Tivel asked, Professor, do humans still practice these ancient forms of combat? Not exactly these forms, but yes, conflict still exists. However, we've also developed international laws, peace treaties, and diplomatic solutions. So you evolved beyond violence? Zora asked hopefully. Lisa and Professor Matthews exchanged glances. We're still working on it, Lisa admitted. But understanding our past helps us build a better future. As the aliens filed out of the classroom, Carax lingered behind. Professor, he said, I'm beginning to see why the Galactic Academy sent us here. Your species may be the most complicated in the known universe. The professor nodded. And we've only covered ancient history. Tomorrow we'll discuss more recent conflicts. Carax's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. I suspect tomorrow will be even more challenging to comprehend. The next morning brought heavy rain, matching the somber mood as Professor Matthews prepared to teach about the world wars. The alien students entered the classroom quietly, their forms showing visible signs of stress from yesterday's lessons. Today, we'll cover the two world wars. Professor Matthews began, his voice gentle. These conflicts changed everything about human society. He displayed a map showing Europe in 1914. World War I began with an assassination and quickly spread across continents. Millions died in trenches fighting over small pieces of land. Tavel's watery form trembled. Millions? How can your species survive such losses? Barely, the professor admitted. But it gets worse. Just 20 years later, World War II began. The screen showed images of tanks, planes, and warships. Carax leaned forward, his crystalline body humming with analytical interest. The technological advancement between these images is remarkable. Only 20 years? War accelerates innovation, Lisa explained. Countries poured resources into developing better weapons, which led to breakthroughs in other fields. Mike Harrison, a tall student with short brown hair, raised his hand. Professor, may I add something? Professor Matthews nodded and Mike stood up. I'm majoring in military history. What's fascinating is how these wars led to things we use today. Radar technology gave us microwave ovens. Military research created the internet. Even space exploration started with military rockets. The aliens stared at Mike in disbelief. Zora's tentacles waved anxiously. You're saying these terrible conflicts produced beneficial technology? Exactly, Mike continued. The pressure of war forces rapid problem-solving. Scientists and engineers work around the clock to gain advantages. Professor Matthews clicked through slides showing wartime innovations. Penicillin mass production, synthetic rubber, nuclear power, all accelerated by war needs. Tavel's form darkened to almost black. But the cost? Surely the death and destruction outweigh these benefits? Of course, the professor agreed. No one argues that war is good, but understanding how conflict drove progress helps explain human development. Carax's amber eyes pulsed rapidly. Show us more about World War II. I need to understand the scale. Professor Matthews hesitated, then displayed statistics. Over 70 million people died. Entire cities were destroyed. Genocide attempted to eliminate whole populations. The classroom fell silent. Zora's tentacles curled tightly around her body. Genocide? She whispered. The deliberate killing of an entire group of people, Lisa explained softly. Suddenly, Zora's body glowed with a pale blue light. The other students gasped as they felt a wave of emotion wash over them. Her telepathic abilities were activating involuntarily. I can feel it, she gasped. The echoes of pain, fear, courage, and sacrifice. It's overwhelming. Lisa rushed to her side. Zora, are you okay? Should we stop? No, Zora said firmly, though her voice shook. We must understand. Continue, Professor. Professor. Matthews showed footage of soldiers liberating concentration camps, of cities rebuilding, of the United Nations forming. From this horror came determination to prevent future wars. International cooperation increased. Human rights became a global concern. Mike raised his hand again. Professor, should we tell them about the atomic bomb? The aliens tensed. Carax spoke first. We detected residual radiation patterns on Earth. We assumed they were from power generation accidents. No, Professor Matthews said grimly. They're from weapons. In 1945, Humans split the atom and created bombs that could destroy entire cities instantly. Tavel's form splashed against his container in shock. You created weapons that could end your own species? Yes, the professor confirmed. And that terrible power actually prevented more world wars. The threat was too great. Carax stood suddenly, his crystalline form ringing like bells. This is madness. Yet, there's a terrible logic to it. You achieved peace through the threat of annihilation? It's called deterrence, Mike explained. When both sides can destroy each other completely, neither wants to start a fight. The aliens looked at each other, communicating silently. Finally, Zora spoke. We came to learn about human progress. We're learning that your greatest achievements and darkest moments are inseparable. That's the human paradox, Lisa said. We're capable of both incredible creation and terrible destruction. Understanding this duality is key to understanding us. As class ended, the aliens moved slowly, clearly overwhelmed by what they'd learned. Tomorrow would bring lessons about the Cold War and nuclear age, even more challenging concepts for these peaceful beings to grasp. Professor Matthews arrived early to find the alien students already in the classroom, huddled together in deep discussion. Their translator devices buzzed constantly as they tried to process yesterday's information about the world wars. Good morning, he said, noticing their troubled expressions. I see you've been thinking about our last lesson. Carax turned, his crystalline structure darker than usual. We spent all night researching the atomic bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We cannot comprehend such destruction. Then you'll find today's lesson equally challenging, Professor Matthews warned. We're covering the Cold War and the nuclear age. Amy Rodriguez, a petite student with curly black hair, raised her hand. Professor, I've prepared a presentation on nuclear deterrence, if that helps. Please go ahead. He nodded. Amy stood and connected her laptop. After World War II, two superpowers emerged, the United States and the Soviet Union. Both developed nuclear weapons, creating a balance of terror. The screen showed missile silos and submarine fleets. Tavel's watery form rippled violently. They built more of these world-ending weapons? After seeing what they could do? Thousands of them, Amy confirmed. By the 1980s, there were enough nuclear weapons to destroy Earth many times over. Zora's tentacles twitched erratically. This defies all logic. Why create weapons you can never use? But that's exactly the point, Amy explained. They were never meant to be used. The threat itself prevented war. We call it mutually assured destruction. MAD. Carax's amber eyes flashed. MAD? Your acronym acknowledges the insanity? Yes, Professor Matthews interjected. Humans often use humor to cope with terrifying realities. Amy showed a graph of nuclear arsenals over time. For 40 years, these weapons kept an uneasy peace between superpowers. No direct wars, but many proxy conflicts. Proxy conflicts? Tavel asked. Smaller wars where superpowers supported opposite sides without fighting directly, Amy clarified. Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan. Different battlegrounds for the same ideological struggle. The aliens grew more agitated. Carax's crystalline body began to change color, shifting from clear to a deep amber. Your species created weapons that could end all life, then played games with smaller wars. It wasn't a game, Mike said from the back. Millions still died in those conflicts, but it prevented World War III. Professor Matthews showed footage of nuclear tests. Mushroom clouds bloomed on screen, each one representing devastating power. The aliens watched in horrified silence. The largest bomb ever tested was the Tsar Bomba, he explained. 50 megatons, thousands of times more powerful than Hiroshima. Suddenly, Carax's structure cracked audibly. Small fissures appeared across his crystalline surface. I'm sorry, he said, his voice resonating strangely. My body responds to extreme stress. This information is overwhelming. Lisa quickly brought him a special crystalline solution to help repair the damage. Should we take a break? No, Carax insisted. We must understand. Amy continued her presentation, showing the Cuban Missile Crisis. In 1962, the world came closest to nuclear war. Soviet missiles in Cuba. American blockade, 13 days of tension. How did you survive? Zora asked, her telepathic abilities picking up the residual fear in human historical records. Communication, diplomacy, and luck, Professor Matthews answered. Both sides realize that nobody wins a nuclear war. Tavel spoke up, his voice gurgling with emotion. On my world, we abandoned weapons millennia ago, but we also stagnated. No challenges meant no growth. That's the paradox, Amy said. The same drive that creates weapons also creates solutions. The space race happened because of Cold War competition. Cracks, his cracks slowly healing, made a connection. So your journey to the stars began with weapons aimed at each other? Exactly, Professor Matthews confirmed. Military rockets became space rockets. Competition drove innovation in computers, materials science, telecommunications. The room fell quiet as the aliens processed this information. Finally, Zora spoke. We're beginning to understand why the Galactic Academy chose your species for membership despite your violent history. Why? Lisa asked. Because you learned to harness destruction for creation, Zora explained. You turned the threat of extinction into a drive for exploration. That's remarkable. As class ended, the aliens seemed less disturbed and more thoughtful. They were starting to see the complex nature of human development, how our greatest threats had become our greatest motivators. Morning sunlight filled the classroom as Professor Matthews set up equipment for the day's lesson. The alien students arrived looking more composed than in previous days, though still showing signs of processing the heavy information about nuclear warfare. Today we'll explore modern warfare, Professor Matthews announced. This includes guerrilla tactics, cyber warfare, and drone technology. Jake Peterson, a muscular student with a crew cut, raised his hand. Professor, I served in the Marines before college. May I share some perspectives? Please do, Jake. The professor nodded. Jake stood, his military bearing evident. Modern warfare isn't just about big armies anymore. It's about small units. Intelligence and technology. Sometimes you never even see the enemy. Tavel's liquid form swirled with curiosity. How can you fight what you cannot see? Through information, Jake explained. Satellites, drones, cyber attacks. Wars can be fought with keyboards now, not just weapons. Professor Matthews displayed images of modern military technology. Unmanned. Drones can strike targets from thousands of miles away. Cyber attacks can disable entire power grids without firing a shot. Krax leaned forward, his repaired crystalline structure gleaming. This seems more precise. Less destructive than nuclear weapons. Sometimes, Jake agreed. But it also makes war easier to start. When soldiers aren't at risk, leaders might be quicker to use force. Zora's tentacles waved thoughtfully. Your species continues to find new ways to conflict even as you advance technologically. But we also find new ways to prevent conflict, Lisa added. International laws, peacekeeping forces, diplomatic channels. Jake shared his experience. I served in Afghanistan. We didn't just fight. We built schools, provided medical care, tried to win hearts and minds. Hearts and minds? Tavel questioned. Getting local people to support you through good deeds, not just force, Jake explained. Modern military strategy includes humanitarian work. Professor Matthews showed videos of disaster relief operations. Military forces often provide aid during natural disasters. The same helicopters that carry weapons also deliver food and medicine. The aliens watched footage of soldiers rescuing flood victims, delivering supplies after earthquakes, and providing medical care in remote areas. This is unexpected, Zora admitted. Warriors becoming healers? Humans are adaptable, Jake said. A soldier can fight one day and build a hospital the next. It's about the mission, not just destruction. Krax's amber eyes pulsed. I'm beginning to see patterns. Your conflicts drive innovation. which then has peaceful applications. Your warriors also serve as protectors and builders. Professor Matthews nodded. Modern militaries do more than fight. They advance medical research, develop new technologies, respond to emergencies. Tell them about GPS, Mike suggested from his seat. Global Positioning System, the professor explained, developed for military navigation, now used by everyone for directions, tracking shipments, finding restaurants. Tavel's form brightened. So military technology becomes civilian technology? Constantly, Lisa confirmed. The internet started as a military project. So did digital cameras, jet engines, and synthetic materials. Jake continued. Even combat medicine saves civilian lives. Techniques for treating battlefield injuries help in emergency rooms. Prosthetics developed for wounded soldiers help accident victims. The aliens communicated silently among themselves before Zora spoke. We're starting to understand something profound about humans. Your capacity for destruction and creation are linked. You channel aggressive energy into progress, but at such cost, Tavel added softly. Jake's expression grew serious. True, every advance comes with sacrifice. That's why many of us who've seen war work hardest for peace. Professor Matthews clicked to his final slide. Modern warfare is evolving toward precision and prevention. We're learning to achieve objectives with less destruction. Crack stood, his crystalline form chiming softly. Professor, I have a theory. Humans haven't eliminated their aggressive instincts. You've learned to redirect them. Competition drives innovation. Military needs create civilian benefits. Warriors become protectors. That's insightful, the professor smiled. We channel our nature rather than deny it. As class ended, the aliens seemed less disturbed and more intrigued. They were beginning to see humanity not as violent primitives, but as complex beings who had learned to transform their darkest impulses into tools for progress. Tomorrow, Professor Matthews announced, we'll visit a military museum. You'll see these concepts in person. The aliens exchanged glances, no longer fearful but genuinely curious about what they would discover next about humanity's complicated relationship with conflict. The military museum stood massive against the morning sky, its stone walls holding centuries of human conflict history. Professor Matthews led the alien students through the entrance, where displays of ancient armor and modern jets created a striking contrast. This museum shows the evolution of human warfare, he explained, from stone weapons to smart bombs. The aliens moved cautiously through the exhibits. Karak stopped before a medieval suit of armor, his crystalline fingers hovering near the metal, without touching. Such primitive protection yet crafted with artistic skill. Tavel flowed around a display case containing World War I rifles. These weapons seem so simple compared to what you showed us in class. Each generation built upon the last, Lisa explained. Every conflict taught lessons that led to new developments. In the World War II section, they encountered a group of elderly veterans sharing stories with schoolchildren. One veteran, wearing medals on his jacket, noticed the aliens and smiled warmly. Never thought I'd see visitors from other worlds interested in our old war stories, he said, approaching them. His name tag read, Bill Murphy, 101st Airborne. Zora's tentacles waved gently. We're trying to understand human nature. Your experiences confuse us. Bill nodded knowingly. War confuses us too, even those who fought. Want to hear something strange? I made my best friends in combat. The worst times brought out our best qualities. How is that possible? Tavel asked, his watery form rippling. When everything's falling apart, you see what people are really made of, Bill explained. Courage, loyalty, sacrifice, they shine brightest in darkness. The aliens followed Bill to a memorial wall covered with names. Other veterans had gathered there, some leaving flowers, others standing in quiet reflection. These are my friends who didn't come home, Bill said softly. We remember them not for how they died, but for how they lived. Karak studied the wall, his amber eyes dimming respectfully. On my world, we have no concept of honoring those lost to violence, because we have no violence. Yet I sense something profound here. Another veteran, A woman with silver hair joined them. Maria Santos, Army nurse, she introduced herself. I saved lives while others took them. War showed me both the worst and best of humanity. That paradox again, Zora observed. Destruction creating compassion. Jake, who had been quietly following the group, spoke up. That's what many civilians don't understand. Those who've seen war often become its strongest opponents. They moved to the modern warfare section, where interactive displays showed peacekeeping, missions, and humanitarian operations. Screens displayed statistics, millions of lives saved through military disaster relief, diseases eradicated through military medical research, technologies developed for defense now serving peaceful purposes. Look at this, Professor Matthews pointed to a display about the International Space Station. Former enemies now work together in space. The same nations that aimed nuclear missiles at each other now collaborate on scientific research. Tavel studied images of astronauts from different countries floating together in zero gravity. So conflict can lead to cooperation? Eventually, Maria nodded. Sometimes we have to learn the hard way. In the museum's final room, a massive screen showed Earth from space. The image slowly zoomed out to show humanity's space probes exploring the solar system. Every rocket that took us to space evolved from weapons technology, Bill said. But look what we did with it. We reached for the stars. Krax turned to face the veterans, his crystalline body glowing softly. I believe I understand now. Your species doesn't glorify war. You honor the human spirit that endures despite it. Exactly, Maria smiled. We remember the cost so future generations might find better ways. As they left the museum, the aliens were noticeably changed. They walked among the veterans, no longer seeing them as warriors, but as complex beings who had faced humanity's darkest aspects and emerged advocating for light. Tomorrow, Professor Matthews announced, you'll present your findings to your home academies. I think you have a unique perspective to share. Zora looked back at the museum, her tentacles forming what appeared to be a human gesture of respect. We came to learn about human violence. Instead, we learned about human resilience. The holographic communication chamber hummed with energy as connections established with multiple worlds across the galaxy. Krax, Tavel, and Zora stood before the shimmering display, preparing to present their findings to the Galactic Academy's Council. Professor Matthews and Lisa watched from the side as the alien students organized their notes. Images of council members materialized, beings of various shapes and colors, all leaders in their respective civilizations. Greetings, exchange students, spoke the council head, a being of pure energy named Luminance. We await your report on Earth's technological development. Krax stepped forward, his crystalline body reflecting the holographic lights. Honored Council, we came to study human technology. We discovered something far more complex. A species whose greatest achievements stem from their greatest struggles, the Meo. Council members shifted uneasily. Tavel continued. Humans possess something unique among known species, the ability to transform conflict into progress. Explain, demanded a gaseous being from the Nebula Confederacy. Zora projected images from their lessons. Observe. Military needs created the internet, space travel, medical advances. Their weapons research led to energy solutions, communication systems, transportation breakthroughs. This sounds dangerous, interrupted a multi-limbed creature from Epsilon Eridani. A violent species cannot be trusted with galactic technology. Krax raised a crystalline hand. With respect, you misunderstand. Humans don't celebrate violence. They've learned to channel aggressive instincts into innovation. Every major war led to technological leaps that benefited all humanity. The council murmured among themselves. Luminance glowed brighter. Show us evidence. Tavel displayed statistics. Human medical technology, developed through battlefield necessity, now leads the galaxy in trauma treatment. Their disaster response capabilities, grown from military logistics, surpass any known civilization. But the cost, protested a telepathic being from Andromeda. Millions dead in their wars. Yes, Zora acknowledged. And that cost drives their determination for peace. Veterans become peace advocates. Former enemies become allies. They learn from pain. Carax presented his analysis. Consider this paradox. Peaceful species like mine abandoned conflict but also innovation. Aggressive species destroyed themselves. Humans found a third path, controlling and redirecting their nature. Lisa stepped forward, invited by the students. If I may address the council, humans aren't perfect. We struggle with our violent history, but that struggle makes us stronger, more adaptable, more determined to improve. The council deliberated, silently. Finally, Luminance spoke. Your findings are disturbing yet intriguing. Student Zora, what is your conclusion? Zora's tentacles formed complex patterns as she organized her thoughts. Humans possess unique qualifications for galactic leadership. Their history of conflict gives them understanding of both peace and war. They can negotiate because they know the cost of failure. Student Tavel, Luminance prompted. Tavel's watery form shimmered. My species achieved peace through stagnation. Humans achieved progress through struggle. For the galaxy to advance, we need their dynamic approach. Student Crax, your final assessment? Crax's amber eyes pulsed steadily. I propose a new theory. Humans represent the next stage of galactic evolution. Not beyond violence, but masters of redirecting it. Their military strategies could defend peaceful species. Their crisis experience could guide disaster response. Their innovation drive could accelerate galactic development. The council chamber fell silent. Professor Matthews held his breath. Luminance glowed intensely. This council has long debated humanity's place in galactic civilization. Your report suggests something we hadn't considered, that Earth's violent history might be an asset, not a liability. Another council member spoke. If humans can transform destruction into creation, perhaps they can help us face the unknown threats beyond our galaxy. We recommend, Crax concluded, full integration of human knowledge into galactic education. Their military academies should train peacekeeping forces. Their crisis management should guide emergency response. Their innovation methods should be studied. The council conferred briefly before Luminance announced, based on this report, we will expand human involvement in galactic affairs. Earth's unique perspective may indeed be what our civilization needs. As the holographic connection faded, the alien students turned to Professor Matthews and Lisa, their forms expressing what their species considered smiles. We came as students, Zora said. We leave as ambassadors for a new understanding of human nature. The farewell ceremony took place in Stanford's main auditorium, filled with students, faculty, and military personnel who had participated in the exchange program. Banners reading Earth Galaxy Educational Alliance hung from the ceiling, marking the historic occasion. Carax stood at the podium, his crystalline form now showing new patterns that hadn't existed when he arrived. When we came to Earth, we expected to study simple technological development. Instead, we discovered the complexity of human nature. The audience listened intently as Tavel flowed forward to speak. My people abandoned conflict so long ago that we forgot how to face challenges. Humans taught us that struggle can lead to growth, not just destruction. Zora's tentacles waved gracefully as she addressed the crowd. Through your history of conflict, you developed empathy, innovation, and resilience. These qualities make you invaluable to the galactic community. Professor Matthews stepped forward, holding 3 certificates. Before you depart, we have something for you. He presented each alien with an honorary degree in human studies. Crax accepted his certificate, his amber eyes glowing warmly. I have requested an extension of my stay. The Galactic Academy has approved my proposal to establish the first interspecies strategic studies program here at Stanford. Surprised murmurs rippled through the audience. Tavel continued, I will return home, but with a new mission, to teach my people about controlled competition and challenge-driven innovation. Zora added, and I will develop a new field of study, conflict resolution through historical understanding. Your veterans taught us that those who know war best often work hardest for peace. Lisa Carter stepped forward with an announcement. The Galactic Academy has offered me a position to create the first human-alien cultural exchange curriculum. I'll be traveling to various worlds to share what we've learned here. Jake Peterson, the former Marine, joined them on stage. I've been invited to help train the galaxy's first interspecies peacekeeping force. Turns out, human military experience is valuable for maintaining peace, not just fighting wars. Amy Rodriguez and Mike Harrison, the students who had contributed so much to the classes, also received special recognition. They would become Earth's first civilian ambassadors to the Galactic Academy. Carax addressed the audience one final time. We learned that humanity's greatest strength isn't your weapons or technology. It's your ability to learn from mistakes, to grow through adversity, and to transform destructive impulses into creative energy. Professor Matthews concluded the ceremony. This exchange has changed how we see ourselves. Through alien eyes, we've recognized that our troubled history has given us unique skills for galactic citizenship. After the ceremony, a reception allowed for personal farewells. Bill Murphy and Maria Santos, the veterans from the museum, presented the aliens with military challenge coins, tokens of respect and friendship. These coins represent a warrior's bond, Bill explained. You've earned them by understanding what many humans struggle to grasp, that strength comes from facing our darkest nature and choosing light. As evening approached, a spacecraft descended onto the university grounds. Its sleek design incorporated both alien and human engineering, a symbol of the new collaboration. Tavel paused before boarding. I once thought humans were primitive because of your violent past. Now I see you as evolved, not beyond violence but beyond being controlled by it. Zora transmitted a final telepathic message to the assembled crowd, a feeling of hope, understanding, and possibility. You have shown us that the path to peace isn't avoiding conflict, but learning from it. Crax was the last to speak. The galaxy has much to learn from Earth. Your struggles have prepared you for challenges that peaceful species cannot imagine. Together, we will face whatever lies beyond our known universe. As the spacecraft lifted off, Professor Matthews turned to Lisa. Who would have thought that our violent history would become our greatest diplomatic asset? Lisa smiled. Maybe that's the final lesson. Our flaws, when understood and redirected, become our strengths. The ship disappeared into the night, sky carrying with it a new understanding. Humanity's turbulent past hadn't disqualified them from galactic civilization. It had uniquely prepared them to lead it.